again.
All right. Yep, that'd be great. All right, sweet. Yep.
Okay, well, we'll give Dot a couple of minutes. I've started the recording, but we'll get underway. So, I'll give you a little bit of a chit-chat intro, and then once Dot comes back in, we'll fire off. So we're going to talk about conversion today. And, you know, it's one of the things that, hang on, let me admit Dot. That sounds awful, doesn't it? Let me admit someone. Okay, there she comes. So keep your smartphones handy too, guys, because there's a couple of extra bonus materials you can get via QR code. So, you know, the same as the WhatsApp system works when you want to log on, your QR code from the screen. So I've got a couple of extra pieces of bonus material for things that I don't have enough time to go into detail today. And you can just QR code that with your phone and pop your email address in, and you'll be able to download, or subsequently you'll receive an email with a download link as well with those pieces of material. So keep your phones handy, but probably put them on silent. And let's get underway. So I might just mute yourselves if you can.
Oh, no. I just won't say anything.
I'm
on my phone.
I can mute you from this end, Margie. Don't worry.
Okay.
Okay, very good, very good, very good. So let's get underway. So, conversion revolution. There's a few areas of business improvement that are quite important to focus on. And what I've found is that when people talk business, so who loves talking business? I guess everybody does at some point. You know, they sit around and they talk about the killer marketing idea, or the strategy, or what they're doing in business, or the great customers they have. And what I've found over time is that conversation, more often than not, will lead itself into the area of lead generation. So how do we generate inquiries? So the many different channels that we can use to generate inquiries, but so often the conversation is around getting the phone to ring. Now, that's an important part of business. There's no doubt about that. But there are many, well, not many others. There's a handful of other big areas of business that we want to make sure that we focus on. And conversion is one of those that's often forgotten. Yeah. So I want to today revolutionize your thinking in a couple of ways. I want to put conversion right back on the top of your agenda, or right back up high on the focus. And I also want to give you a few of my favorite low-cost or zero-cost strategies you can use to improve conversion in your business. Does that sound all right? Excellent. I've got you all muted, so thanks for the nods of the head. Mike's done this before. So a quick agenda. So the power of conversion rate, we'll have a look at that. Mini conversion. This is a very, very important concept to get. And I think what you'll come away with when you understand this is there's a lot of opportunities for you to make quick improvements in your business. Now, we are in a period of the year where it's a good time to do business. I know COVID's interrupted everything, but typically your August, September, October, November are good long months with only one set of school holidays in them, and not many public holidays up here in Queensland. Easter's out of the road, and as you know, in the first half of the year, we have lots of Mondays off. So, and there's also something about the rush up to Christmas where I think emotionally people want to get stuff done. Most people think about the business year as January to December, even though our financials work mid-year to mid-year. So the concept of, did I have a good year? Have I completed what I wanted to complete? Is really the line in the sand is Christmas Eve. So, you know, I work with a guy in the telephone systems arena, and it's not so hot and heavy in the COVID times, but prior to that, his biggest months for the previous 3 years were always September. And he'd do double the revenue in September, and, you know, half as much again in October. So we're in a good time of the year, guys. Qualifying, I want to talk to you about how to do that and do it better. Sales meetings, you'll learn a lot from the process of how to run a sales meeting. And that is anytime you're sitting down with a customer, whether that's over the phone or over Zoom or face-to-face, and you're talking about how your product or service can help them. Think about that as a sales meeting. The traditional sort of, probably what Lara's doing today, running off into town to have a meeting. We used to do a lot of that, but that's shifting and changing. So sales meeting now means anytime you're sitting down to talk turkey about how your product or service can help a particular person meet their goals and dreams. Quoting and proposals. This is a big area where people often shoot themselves in the foot. They can do so much to get themselves to a point where they've met with the prospect, they've been through the whole sales meeting process with them, everything's looking good, and then it's, oh, can you just put something down in writing for me? And then who's ever found they disappear off the face of the planet, you can't get them back again? Or the whole thing falls over. Yeah. So I want to talk to you about how to avoid that. And also throughout, mainly towards the end, there's a couple of QR codes there where you can get additional bonus materials if you feel they're going to be useful for you. But I'll flash those up for a little while so you can QR code them if you want to. So a little bit about me. Solving the people puzzle in business is where my strengths lie. Let me just get that chat up. Good on you, Karen. Thanks. Good point. So where I work with organizations, and I do have a spread of organizations I work with, from the little ones like our own businesses, right through to very large organizations. So I'll do leadership and team performance work inside larger organizations. I'll do sales training for larger organizations and right down to owner operators, written sales communication, and public speaking. So teach people how to generate leads from speaking at networking events, for example. I've got something coming up on that soon. And that's a really good way, particularly for little businesses and micro businesses, to make themselves known and to generate real, genuine inquiries. So you'll find that if you go and speak at a networking event, it might be 15 or 20 people there. There might only be 2 or 3 that are interested, but when else do you get 2 or 3 leads for 20 minutes worth of marketing effort? And also helping people with their confident communication. So let's focus in now on the topic of today, which is conversion rate, the power of conversion rate. So have a think about this. Just say currently in your business, you're converting 2 out of 5. So 2 sales come out of 5 inquiries. If you just did some little things to improve that a tiny bit to 3 out of 5, what's the impact of that? Now, a lot of people say, well, it's 20%, but your actual sales have gone up by 50%, because 3 is 50% bigger than 2. So imagine then if you maintained a 50% increase in sales over the course of a year. What would that mean? Now, what it means to your bottom line profits is really significant. I tend to find, particularly in the owner-operator businesses, they can usually handle a reasonable increase in sales before they have to go and put someone else on. And that's just the nature of the tiny businesses. We're doing the work as well as we're doing the marketing. If we were full-time marketing, we'd have too much work to do. And when we're working and doing all the delivery, we're not marketing. And you can tend to have that boom-bust cycle. However, if you were to increase work coming through the door, there are many businesses who may not actually have to increase their overheads to accommodate that. Now, when you increase your revenue without having to increase your overheads, your bottom line profit is vastly increased. The other good thing about conversion rate strategies is that they don't cost you anything to implement. It's more about skill and process than it is about spending dollars. So if you've ever advertised on Google or Facebook or put flyers out or any of those things, they all have a cost, don't they? You've got to spend when it's lead generation marketing, unless you're trying to do some of the organic stuff, but it tends to have some limitations in how good it can be. So what would a 50% increase in sales mean to you over the course of a year, plus a zero cost of the marketing to increase that, plus if you didn't have to increase your overhead? So the pitch is pretty rosy. And what I want to do is to ask you to think really long and hard. There might well be enough inquiries coming in. There's Andrew. Andrew's just joined us. Okay, great. There might be enough inquiries for you to increase your business if your conversion rate increased. And I sometimes see that business owners can be a little bit blinded by that. If the inquiries sort of didn't really get going and didn't go anywhere right from the beginning, they can often say, well, that was a dud inquiry, or the leads aren't any good. Well, it could be the case, but I want you to be open-minded to the fact that your conversion process may be able to take a bit of a spit polish, a bit of a renewal, and some of those leads that are not going anywhere may be able to turn into something. Now, I'm not saying you should try and go and get every single client, because there are people out there you don't want as clients. There's some customers you'd rather refer to your competitors and let them be their problem, but I just want you to remain open-minded to the concept that, hey, there could be inquiry coming into my business that I'm not necessarily converting. So hello, Andrew, welcome. I just muted you, but welcome along. And we've only just got underway, Andrew. So kinks in the hose. Who's ever watered the garden and you've got right down the back corner and there's a damn kink in the hose? Yeah? You put the hose down, walk up, undo the kink, then the hose is flipping around everywhere. Blah, blah. Think about your sales process like a garden hose. Turn the tap on at one end, which is leads, and the water come out the other end, which is sales. Yeah. At anywhere along that 30 foot of garden hose, if there's a kink, no water comes out. Yeah. So you could have kinks at different stages in your sales process. And if any one of those kink, it doesn't matter how good the next stage of your sales process is, the water doesn't get there. So this is what I want you to conceptualize. And it's probably the biggest breakthrough for people. The concept of mini conversions. So most of us will have something like this, where we'll start with an inquiry. We need to qualify that inquiry to see if they're serious, if they're the type of customer we want, if our product or service helps them achieve their goals, so all those sorts of things. Do they have a real need? If you've ever had someone, for example, where they've inquired about your product or service, you've had a great big long chat to them, it's all sounding good and feeling good, and then when you followed up, they've said, oh, I think we're just going to put that on the back burner for a while. Has anyone ever had that happen? That's because there wasn't a real need. And what I want to encourage you to do is to not actually present a solution when there's no need. Because what are you presenting the solution to? It's like presenting the solution to an empty wall. Or more to the point, it's just rabbiting on about your product or service. And that makes us look like that yucky salesperson who talks underwater with a mouthful of marbles. Yeah, we never ever want to look like that. But inadvertently, you can fall into things that can cause that. So there's a process for identifying, is there a real need that's strong enough to get that person to part with time, money, and energy to solve the problem? If there is a real need, you've got a good chance of converting it if you've got a good product or service. If there's no need, I don't care how good your product or service is, it won't convert. Then, of course, we've got to talk about the solution. Normally, there's some form of negotiation after that, whether it's just simply answering questions, or sometimes I might want to negotiate the value package you're offering, and then ultimately we get to the sale. You'll have something like that in your business. Now, for some businesses, the first two bits can be done on the phone and the rest is done face-to-face. For other businesses, the whole lot could be done on the phone. See, if you're a tour operator, for example, the whole lot can be done on the phone before they get to you, because you're a destination. There might be online aspects of that. And for other businesses, say for retail, for example, if they come in to see you, then the whole lot can be done face-to-face. So you'll have varying methods by which you do it, but the conversation will move through those steps. Now, in some cases, in a business-to-business setting, that might end up being 3 conversations. one conversation here to qualify, one conversation here, another conversation through here to present your solution, and then a final conversation to onboard them. But if they rocked up to a retail outlet, you might do all of that in the same 15 or 20-minute conversation. Needless to say, if you can identify the stages of the communication you're moving your prospects through, you'll be able to identify clearly where is it breaking, where is the hose kinking. And once you can realize where the hose kinks, you just start to put in communication strategies to be able to make sure that doesn't kink. And when you unkink there, all the water gets through to the next stage. Is that making sense to people? Okay, so the concept then is, where is your hose kinking? And it could be kinking in multiple spots. That's okay. What we want to do, I guess, is to take the tightest kink out and start to let more water flow through. And then subsequently, we can just unkink the bits as it goes through. It can't be completely kinked, I should say. It can't be completely kinked all the way through, or you wouldn't be getting any sales at all. So you are making some because you're still in business. Let's just help you make more. Yeah. Map out your sales process. So there's an inquiry, and then there's a step 1, step 2, step 3, step 4, step 5, and ultimately the sale. We typically measure conversion rate as from the number who start here, how many get through to here. I want you to start thinking about mini conversion rates. Yeah. So here's a way to do it. Map out your sales process. Could look like something like that. Review your last 10 lost sales. And that's what I mean, the inquiries that didn't go anywhere, right through to ones you actually submitted proposals and quotes for. Don't think that a sale that was lost is only one that got here. You might be having kinks in your hose up here that's preventing people from even getting further down the chain. If you disqualified someone and said, we don't want to do business there, and move them on, I wouldn't be counting those. If you had inquiries that didn't even allow you to get to the qualification stage, who's ever had that? They ring up, they fire a few questions, and you can't take them any further. Well, that's a massive kink in the hose, and we need to start to be thinking, what can we do to unkink that, right? So review your last 10 lost sales. Where were the kinks? And then buckle down and fix the most common kink, right? And then fix the next most common kink. I know that sounds simple, but if you're all fairly good at communication. So if you can actually identify, say, hey, more often than not, my sales are falling over at this point here, just start to think about that transition and what can you do differently. You'll learn a lot too if you can have the brevity to ring back those lost sales. Not to try and reconvert them because the horse is bolted, but to say, hey, look, I like to measure my marketing and my sales. What was it? And there's no challenge here. What was it that made you decide not to go ahead? And some people won't answer, but some people will. It's a bit of a difficult conversation, but as long as you're not confronting, right, you'll get some insight there that can help you. It can really, really help you. I learned that early in business. I was told to do it, and it was hard conversations to have, but I learned a way of saying, hey, Bruce, I know you've decided to go somewhere else for this, and look, no problem. I'm not trying to ring up and complain or change your mind or anything. But look, Bruce, I put a lot of time into measuring my sales and marketing, and I'm really interested to know, what was it that allowed you to go somewhere else? Sometimes a brother-in-law, sometimes it was a few bucks difference on price. And I realized when I thought back over the sales process, I didn't spend enough time building value. So those sorts of things, you'll get a lot out of it. And the reason why you want to do that is because we tend to jump into our sales process and we get in the groove and we follow the same pattern we've always followed. We do sales the same way today that probably we've done it for the last 5-10 years. Who's ever driven a four-wheel drive on the beach? Has anyone ever done that? When you get the four-wheel drive wheels in the wheel ruts, you can take your hands off the wheels, put it in high 2, and away you go, and you can drive 50K up the beach without even having to have your hands on the steering wheel. Sometimes we can jump into our sales process and just follow those motions. And having these points of feedback and realization can really help us to gain the insight to see how can I change my communication and do it better. Yeah. So qualifying. This is a really important part of the conversion process. Who's found that prospects ring up and they start asking price questions straight away? How much for? Just wanted to get a price on. Right? It's a difficult one to communicate through. It's responsible for so many small business owners saying everyone's just focused on price. But yet consumer research after consumer research for the last 50 years has shown that the majority of people do not buy on price alone. Tough times are not tough times. They buy on value and how well they think the particular solution is going to solve their problem. So qualification is actually it serves as two things. It lets you know whether or not you should spend time with this person, right? And for a number of reasons. And I don't want you to think, oh, we've got to get rid of the time wasters, because that's already taking a negative view of your prospects. What you want to be thinking is, hey, is there going to be a good fit for us? And that's what you want them to be looking out for. Otherwise, you can get a bit of a highfalutin, high and mighty type, approach, which will turn people off. But prospects often ask how much. Now, that's understandable for a non-expert to ask. So, Mike, if a person didn't understand much about web design, came and wanted to know what in half intelligent question are they going to ask? Are they going to ask, are you using WordPress or using some other CMS? Are they going to ask this? They're not going to ask any of that. They're going to go, how much?
How much? Yeah. And
how long does it take?
Grossly simplified answer if you even try to answer it.
Yes, exactly. Now, was Margie trying to say something or not? No. Oh, okay. No worries. So they're a non-expert. So their own and what's going to happen though? A non-expert is not going to come to you and say, "Hey, Mike, I know nothing about websites. I wouldn't have the faintest idea. Tell me what I need to know and what I need to get," because everyone's had experience with somebody taking advantage of blatant honesty. Yeah. We live in a big, bad world and people want to protect themselves. So the other thing for a non-expert is dollars is seen as the constant to compare between confusing options. So they are going to start with price, and the poor buggers, they don't know where else to start. So that's okay. Just go with that. That's okay. What we need to do is to educate the prospects on value so they're not comparing on price. And we have to learn to take the lead in the conversation. You take the lead politely. All right. On that first sales call, that first conversation, I'm going to give you a couple of more generic sounding phrases that you can use to take control of that conversation and turn it around. So it could be if someone comes into your shop and starts firing off questions. Hey, have you used our product or service before? Oh, sorry. Have you been into our store before? Might be someone who's ringing up. Have you used our product or a similar product or service before, Mary? Or just so I can help you best, can I ask you a few questions? Something like that is what you need as a turnaround phrase so you can start taking the lead as the expert in the conversation. If you allow the prospect just to come on and fire off questions to you and you answer their uneducated questions, and I'm not trying to speak poorly about people, but they're not educated on your product service. If you're following their lead by answering their questions, how the heck can you take the position of the leader, right? And the best clients, the A-grade clients, want the person who's going to lead them to a solution. It's very, very important that you do that. So what 2 to 4 questions, and you don't want to ask too many more than that in the qualifying phase, because once you go beyond a little tiny number of questions, you're actually moving into the needs identification phase, right? You can do that in the same conversation, but I think you need to signify that you're moving along and you're progressing them along. Because if you're trying to get deep into questioning, but they think, hey, I'm still at the section where I just ring up and find out a few things, right? We've got to move them forward and ask if they want to follow our lead. So start thinking about what are the 2 to 4 questions you can ask to find out, A, if the prospect has a problem you can solve, and B, if they're a good fit for your business. Now, if they keep asking, banging on about price, you need to be able to ask them, hey, Bruce, is price the only thing that you're going to make a decision on? Oh, well, it's the most important, isn't it? Well, no, clearly, no, it's not. Do you mind if I just outline to you a few things that can help you understand the complete value package to look at? So you'll start to work these things out too by reviewing and thinking back through deeply over conversations that you have, right? And realizing that, hey, that conversation fell over. A lot of people say, oh, that's because they're a so-and-so, right? You'll hear people swearing about their prospects. Well, yeah. But I tell you what, ladies and gentlemen, the only thing that you can control in a sales conversation is what you do. So we can lament over how much of a so-and-so they might have been, or we can put our thinking hats on and use our brilliant intelligence to say, what could I have done differently that may have led to a different outcome, right? So get rid of any sort of concept around blame or anything like that, and just say, how could I have led that sales process better? And what will happen is your communication will get better and better. Sales meetings. Most salespeople show up and throw up, right? It's terrible. And this often happens inadvertently, right? I just read your comment there, Lara. You can tell you're a copywriter. Lara's written, kinky business is risky business. I didn't even see it. That was 10 minutes ago. Now, the reason why this happens is people don't have a process for leading a conversation with the client. So I want you to think about when you're talking with clients, have you got a clear track in your mind of a process of how to lead that conversation? Now, a lot of people say no, and it depends. Every person's different. Yes, every person is different. But for the sales process, you have to be able to identify what is that person's need. What is their unique and different need? And how serious are they about fulfilling that need? So you need a process to be able to do that. And I have found that a lot of people don't have that. So when you're identifying the need, whether you are doing that on the phone because you do a lot of your stuff on the phone, whether you're doing it face-to-face, whether it's a separate meeting to the qualifying meeting, all of the environmental factors don't really matter. What matters is how do we lead that part of the conversation to take it to the next level. Now, I want to show you how to do that. So who's heard the concept consultative selling before, right? And I've trained that many salespeople over the years. And one of the things that the bold salesperson loves to say is, it's all about their need, and I'm needs-based selling, and they'll tell you all this stuff. And I go, oh, fantastic, because I get quite excited when I hear that. What's your process for identifying the need? Oh, well, I just tell them all about, and I'm thinking, how is telling identifying a need? It can't be. So there's a process here, guys, and it works magic, works absolutely magic. And it's not about trickery. So the old days of sales tricks are gone because the consumer's too educated nowadays, right? Too educated. We actually have to be very genuine in finding out and listening and understanding what's the need of that person. Now, remember, they're going to be a bit like, you show me yours before I show you mine. That's where they're going to be, right? Because they're used to or very scared of the person who's going to take advantage of their openness and vulnerability if they show it. Right, so there's a little bit of a process here. So like the iceberg, and it's a common and classic theory of communication, is there's only a little bit sticks out of the surface. The most of what's going on is below the surface, but people don't normally reveal that to you. And the quality of your communication skills is your ability to get below the surface, and in a sales context, understand the real reason why they will buy. Now, again, research after research after research in the psychology of selling has shown that people make emotional decisions to buy. The explanations they often give post-purchase are logic. So the rule of thumb is people make emotional decisions to buy and they back it up with logic. Yeah. So we have to find out what are the emotional reasons why someone will buy, and we use that in our description of the product or service we're going to give. We use that in the proposals that we write for people, and I'll talk to you about proposals in a moment too. Even if you have what you think is a boring, plain Jane product, well, it provides value to someone. It helps someone solve a problem, meet a need, kick a goal, achieve a dream. Otherwise, there's no value to it. So even if you think it's a vanilla colored product, underneath it all, there'll be an emotional reason to buy it or what you offer as the provider of that service. So, for example, telecommunications, I've got a lot to do with that industry with clients. And yeah, it's a bit boring. It's phone connections, for God's sake. But the overall package of what's offered in terms of the service and bending over backwards and making sure that they're never left hanging and all of those sorts of things are what make that. Because when we hear people talk about the challenges they've had and what their real needs are and what they want to avoid again in the future is all of the problems and cold, don't care call center. Yeah. So that's the emotional reason we found. So for web design, it might not necessarily be only what's at the front in terms of the design, Mike. It could be the ongoing relationship, the fixing up the tweaks, the pointing out problems. There could be a whole value package around that. So questions, your expertise and your leadership are what help you get below the surface. So here, this process called the ideas process is a process that I teach people for the different types of questions they can ask progressively through a sales conversation. So we start out with I for information questions. So that's a little bit about who are you and where you're from and what sort of business you got and how many people work here and blah, 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 that sort of stuff. Don't stay too long there. You can find a lot of this stuff out by browsing their website before you see them. But if you're in a retail context, you might spend a bit of time finding that out. The problem is spending too much time here is you can fairly quickly be seen as irrelevant because you're asking sort of surface level questions. What are they? So D is for dissatisfaction. So that's the problem they've got, the unmet need they have. It could be a goal or a desire. It could be quite a happy, smiley place they want to get to, but they can't get there yet because they haven't found the solution to it. So they're dissatisfied with the now in juxtaposition of where they want to be in the future. So we're starting to identify problem here. What are the effects? What are the effects on them of that problem? What are the effects on them of not getting that goal? What are the effects on them? So that's pain points. And you can ask that as simply as, so how does that affect you? If you're really expert in your product or service, you might be able to presuppose some of the effects of that. And you might say, do you find that that has an effect on blah, 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 right? But again, you're asking as a question and you're letting them tell you, because what you want to hear as they're explaining not only the problem to you, but the effects of that problem is you want to hear their words. You want to hear their pain points as they say it, because you're going to reflect that in your sales proposal when you give it to them. What are the advantages of having this solved, right? And you can ask that as a range of, this is sort of a set of vision questions, really. So where do you want to be? What do you want life to look like when it's there? What will your business be like when we've got this problem solved, or your life, or whatever it is? I asked a gentleman, actually physical trainer out of the RAF base. I did a lot of leadership training for the RAF a number of years ago. And I had to do the song and dance and go and have a sales meeting and find out the needs and present a proposal and blah, blah, blah. And I did this process and I asked the fellow at the end of it, I said, Steve, and we were, it was about July, I was negotiating and we were going to do the training in September, right? And I said, so picture this, Steve, it's Christmas Eve, you've locked the office door, you're going to do your 15-minute drive home that you said. He lived out near Amberley in the countryside. So and you're going to be reflecting on how your team is behaving now, what the leadership behaviors are of your team, because we're 90 days on from having completed the training. What do you want to see in the behavior of your leaders? And he just sat bolt upright and told me, boom, word for word for word, exactly what he wanted to see. So that was the advantages, the vision, the outcome. And so what was I showing him that my particular training process could do? I was showing him how the things that I would teach his leaders would empower them and enable them to be able to take on those leadership behaviors as time went on. He gave me exactly what he wanted to hear. right? Now, the reason why I said most salespeople show up and throw up is that here at this dissatisfaction point, as soon as the prospect starts to say, hey, there's a bit of a need, they go, oh, we can fix that. You're just like the customer we dealt with the other day, and blah, 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 on and on and on and on and on and on it goes. And the customer's sitting there thinking, well, I'm not just like the other customer you dealt with. In fact, my business is different. In fact, you don't get me. You know what? When you go, I think I'm going to go and get another quote from somebody else. If you do this bit really, 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 really well, they won't necessarily feel compelled to go and get another quote. Particularly if you're dealing with smaller businesses where the be all and end all is the business owner and they make the decisions. As you get into bigger business, they have purchasing policies where there's a must. And then, of course, the final thing is sell the solution. So there's a bit of magic happens here, right? So once we get all the way through to here, you need to have a transition phase in the conversation where you say, hey, Mary, let me just see that I've got everything. So you're in a position right now where you've got XYZ going on and you've talked about the problem that they've alluded to. That problem is causing these downstream effects of A and B and C, right? And of course, you've taken notes all the way through this conversation, or you should have anyway. But ideally, Mary, you want to be in a position where you've got D, E, and F happening. Have I got it? Is there anything else? And you always want to ask, is there anything else? Keep the conversation open. If they keep talking and keep telling, they'll keep dropping gold nuggets out right in front of you to show you the solution they're looking for. And as long as it's something you can do, they've shown you how to sell them, right? And I don't mean that in a manipulative way at all. They've just told you exactly what they want. So why wouldn't you put your product or service in their color wrapper? Yeah. Their color Christmas paper, you wrap it up in that. And they've told you what color the Christmas paper is because they've answered all of these wonderful questions for you here. You'll get to a point in the conversation now, ladies and gentlemen, where they go, yeah, that's it. And they don't feel compelled to add anymore. They feel heard. They feel listened to. That's a massive part of trust building, by the way. Just the way you carry yourself and conduct yourself in that you've listened and you've used the active listening and you've dragged this information out, and is there anything else? And you've clarified for your understanding, all of those wonderful things. Then you can say, well, fantastic. I'm convinced that we can help you achieve that. Right? So you've got to take a strong stand. I know that we can help you do that. Let me show you the process from here. Right? That's magic. So if you are face-to-face with the person, say in a retail environment, you might be wanting to move them through and on to the sale then and there. If, for example, Mike, you're probably going to be writing a proposal, no doubt, if it's a bigger website. So let me show you the process from here. And this is a classic business-to-business one. And quite often that happens because they allow an hour for the sales meeting, and it takes you about an hour to get where you need to get to anyway, and there's no time left to present. And if there's no time left to present, never, ever, 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 ever allow yourself to be presenting on a deadline, because you'll get washed over and pushed aside. Set another time. So let me show you the process from here. I need to go away and put these things down. I want to map this out for you in black and white, put some numbers to it for you, Mary. And you must say this, Mary, I'm going to come back then and outline that to you, run through that with you, and make sure that you've got all your questions answered. And then I'll leave you to make your decision. That last bit I never used to say, and I'll get a little tiny bit of pushback, but now I never get pushback, because what they don't want is you coming back with a proposal and jamming them hard for the sale. And some salespeople will do that, right? So, but what you don't want is you emailing off proposals and quotes. By the way, who does that? New customers, email a proposal or quote. Never, ever, ever do it. Existing repeat customers is fine. You just got to have a bit of formal paperwork. That's great. That's okay. Brand new customer, get in the car and go and see them, or get them on Zoom. That will significantly increase your conversion rate. Yeah. So we go through and say, run through that, answer all your questions, and then leave you to make your decision, because that's fair enough. Some people don't want to make decisions on the spot. There's 50% of the population. When I teach you the person understanding personalities in business, which I might do one time, there's 50% of the population, easy, probably more, that just will not make a decision on the spot. So if you try and force them to make a decision on the spot, you're going to fall out of rapport with 50% of the population, and that's no good. Some people have processes they've got to go through, other people they've got to check with, and blah, blah, blah. So that's fine. At the time at which you're presenting that proposal, though, you're locking in a time for the final follow-up. Yeah, so you are advancing the sale each time as you go through. That last bit there is where the magic happens. Yeah, really, really important. Because when you say, I'm sure we can do that for you, let me show you the process from here, what's been their experience with you for the last hour? You sitting there intelligently asking questions, checking for understanding, drawing things out, understanding them and their need, getting right below the surface and understanding all of that. So that's what proves that you are trustworthy when you say, I'm sure we can fix that for you. Let me show you the process from here. That's a very, very solidifying statement to use. Quotes and proposals. Do you shoot yourself in the foot when putting it in writing? So be honest with me now. Who's ever gone through that, done all the thing, think it looks good, come time to put it in writing, and then the sale's fallen over? Has that ever happened? Yeah. Many businesses do. And if you can master this step, you will beat your competition to the A-grade clients. Why? Because most businesses do a very bad job of putting their stuff in writing. Yeah. Most of your competitors out there are doing crappy little quotes for people. And if anyone's quoting, big slap on the wrist, because all a quote does is focus people in the bottom right-hand corner of the page. What's the bottom right-hand corner of the page got on it? The price. And we can sit back and sometimes lament saying, oh, bloody clients are all price focused. Well, we got to give them some stuff that's not focused on price. So blow up your quotes, throw them away, tear them up, rip them up, get rid of them, right? Don't want to see them anymore. Do proposals instead. And do not email your proposals to new prospects, right? You've got to get them on the phone, on Zoom, or drive back and see them. I mean, we're lucky enough here in Queensland that the lockdowns haven't eliminated our ability to do that. And if it's a brand new client and if it's some business of worth, right? It's if you're selling something that's $1,500 or more, really, you want to be taking the time to go back and see them. To present that proposal, and you can present over Zoom and whatever. So proposals are easy, right? Easy when you follow the sales meeting formula that I just mapped out for you, and when your proposal is just a summary in writing. So your proposal is just a summary in writing of the problem they've got, the downstream. So you could, here it is, you could write it like this. Hello, Mary, great to meet with you the other day. It was good to have a good long chat about your business. I could see that you're experiencing challenges with X, Y, and Z. That's causing these downstream effects for you, a bullet point of the pain points. Ideally, Mary, you want to be in a position where you can have a bullet point of the outcomes she wants. We're confident that we can do that for you. And then go on a little bit of a high level description of your product or service, put the full price in, don't itemize it. Away you go. Nice little one pager for simple services. For other services, you might want to do a little bit more in terms of background and those sorts of things. But even if you just did that simple little one pager style that I outlined to you, you'll be ahead of 90% of your competitors, because 90% of your competitors will churn out an A4 page with line item, subtotal, line item, subtotal, line item, subtotal, grand total, and email it. So you could beat that, right? Now, some people haven't got time to do proposals. Well, come on. Have you got time to be doing quotes that don't convert either? So if you can learn, because of the best writing, the best business writing and the best sales writing is write as you speak, right? So basically, when I said to you there's a transition phase in that sales process and you summarize what happened, and when they say, yeah, that's it, Well, basically, we're going to write that bit up as our proposal. Yeah. So you've already practiced it in front of the client anyway. So and they're also easy when you template 80% of it, right? So your About Us page, right? Lara can help you write a really good one of those if you haven't got one, but that's right. That goes in your proposal. Testimonials. I suggest that you have a swipe file of testimonials for different types of businesses and different types of outcomes and different things that you've done. So you can just copy and paste the testimonials that you need, right? The sign-off page, I think it's important to have a signature page. It commensurates the deal. I'm not worried about getting all legalese with it, but I'm saying, well, hey, when we've talked turkey about something, I'll put that in front and you're prepared to take a pen and sign off on my proposal and say, hey, we're good to go, then I've got that commitment, haven't I? Right? The terms and conditions and other key paragraphs as well. So within your proposals, because you will do business for certain types of clients again and again and again, and there will be similarities, right? So you can create a swipe file, which is just a Word doc that's got key writings in it of all these great little paragraphs that you use for transitioning between phases of your document, opening your document, explaining key benefits, those sorts of things. And what that means then is the task of putting a proposal together becomes literally 15 or 20 minutes in front of the computer, and then you're ready to present that, print it out and present it. Get your phones. There's the first QR code. So this little booklet that I've written, 10 ways to make more money from your marketing. So how to write marketing that gets more sales. And so no doubt you're already doing that. You're writing marketing in your business right now. So there's 10 hints and tips there that can help you write better. So if you want to snap that with your QR code reader, gives you a chance just to pop your email in. And it'll take you to a page where you can download it, or you'll receive an email later on that you can download it off your computer. So I'll just leave that up for a little bit longer and let you snap away. Quotes and I've put quotes and proposals there. I don't actually want you to do quotes. I want you to do proposals. Some people say, look, we're in an industry where we need a formal itemized quotation, particularly if they're dealing with purchasing offices in large organizations and so forth. Well, you can include your quote page within it. There's no problem with that. But I would be learning how to write the summary across the top that separates you from the pack. Because remember, the last thing they're going to look at before they make their decision is those pieces of paper. Your meeting is forgotten. So you want to be able to separate yourself from the pack there. Oh, there's one more too before we go to questions. And I will go to questions in a minute, Susie. But if any of you have ever thought, hey, you'd like to get up the front of at a networking event and present, then you can QR code that as well, and we can show you some hints and tips. I'm actually going to be speaking at Susie's networking events on this exact topic. So how can you use networking events to generate some leads for your business? So but you can get a hold of the little ebook on that too if you want to. So thank you. So Susie, I might unmute you, and if people wanted to type their questions in, or if we wanted to, I might unmute everyone actually, and just see if they wanted to pass some commentary or ask some questions. Hello, Donna. How are you?
Yeah, I'm good. Thank you, James. Thanks. I do apologize for coming in late too.
That's all right, mate.
I'm
We got
sorry.
a recording of it, so we'll be able to make that available for you.
Great.
So
Hi, Donna.
Hi, lovely. How are you, Susie?
Good, darling. How are you?
Yeah, good. Thanks.
Good.
So did anyone ever sounds funny, doesn't it? Did anyone have any questions, thoughts, or ideas based on what we've been through? Susie?
James, yeah, sorry, can I jump in?
Oh, Lara,
Zara.
sorry, go on, mate.
Yeah, thank you. Look, I really appreciate everything that you've covered here today, and I know that it works because I've had experience of what it is that you're talking about in the past. It's been a while for me, and I really appreciate the value of templates. So I'm wondering if there is a template that you'd have of something that we could learn from to be able to create something of our own.
Yeah, there is some. I'll take a look and put something together. I've actually got some that I share with my clients around. So from a simple version, so like a one pager, through to something more complex, and through to something that's quite complex. Most small businesses would only need the first version, I think.
Thank
So
you.
yeah, there is something there. Let me have a look, and I'll get back to the people on the who zoomed in on this Zoom and let them know when it's available. Hey.
That'd be awesome. Thank you. Also, just can I let you know, while I'm on my phone listening in, I've just taken screenshots of the QR codes. I don't know if anyone here technically knows how to then get those QR codes off my phone, so I can get
I'll
to
email you the links that they go to. So,
oh, thank you.
Yeah, I'll send you an
Can I
email.
have it too, please?
Yeah,
Because I've
Margie.
only got it on my phone.
Yeah, no worries. Okay, I will. I'll send
Also,
them. Yeah,
Maybe we should just email everyone, James.
yeah, maybe.
James,
Yes,
should
Margie.
I be like at the moment? My business page has my prices on each service that I provide.
Mhm.
Should I take them off the
Yeah.
prices?
I'm not one for promoting the prices online.
Yeah.
You see it sometimes with software and those sorts of things, but when it's a personalized service, I would think that probably take them off and get them to inquire to you, so you can wrap up a personalized offer to
Everybody
them.
always asks me how much I charge anyway.
Yeah,
And that's why I thought, should I leave them up there or should I take them off and just let them ask?
Yeah,
What sort
I
of
think
business
so. And
have you
then
got up
when
to?
they're asking you, you can also use that qualifying process we talked about, which is
Yeah.
look, and start to get into what are the real needs and that, and then that's how you differentiate yourself.
Yeah.
Mm.
Thank you.
You're welcome, Margie. Great. Well,
I've got a question if no one
go,
else
Mike.
wants.
Yeah.
Yeah, so you may be aware, James, I'm just a technical person. I'm not a salesperson at all. My focus at the moment is working out how we can implement, the sales strategies that you're talking about
Yes.
in the context of automation. So I can build the infrastructure, but I have no idea what to write on the pages. The copywriting Lara's helping with, and the visual layout. I still need someone to find that. But what would you recommend if I needed to have a crash course in your life's work, so that I can understand what questions to ask?
Yep.
Maybe if you could help out, point me in the right direction with that, so that I can then focus on building the infrastructure underneath all of that.
Yes. I think at some point you want to sort of reconcile in your mind, you're probably going to need to have a conversation with them. If it's, I don't know what sort of website packages you're doing, but I tend to find if once you're getting into that sort of few $1,000s range, you've got to have a conversation with someone or they won't necessarily buy. But I do think that in the modern world, you could, and what COVID has done for us, you could start to gear yourself towards having Zoom conversations with people. Because it's terribly inefficient to drive, from when we work from home, we're in the suburban areas and we're going to go and drive to a business. It's really an hour to get there. By the time you're there and parked up, it's an hour or more for the meeting. And then unless you're going to a flow-on meeting, if you're coming back to the office, it's another hour. So that's half a day gone, right? Whereas if you had that automated infrastructure that were feeding you appointments, you could have done 3 client meetings in that same 3 hours, and you'd probably have 2 sales out of it, rather than 3 hours and you're going to get 1 sale if you get 100% conversion rate. Yeah. So I would be thinking of if that idea of doing your meetings over Zoom is attractive to you, gearing all of that infrastructure to two meetings. One would be a 15-minute call, right? So a qualifying call. I learned this from what a lawyer did, believe it or not, and he wasn't a salesperson either. But he had a fairly large family law practice. Part of what he did is probably the number one guy in Queensland on wills and estates, but he also had a family law practice as well. And he said, because the family law is so sort of cut and dry and specific, I can talk to someone and give them a very firm indication of what the process will be and an indication of what the likely outcome is going to be. So he would offer that up. And he'd say sometimes it'd go more than 15 minutes. Oh, Siri, or whatever your name is, stop it. So 15, that was his qualifier. So you could do a similar process, Mike, which is offer people a free 15-minute discussion about their website and their needs, right? And then be doing a proposal, which you would display on screen at the next Zoom meeting, right? And then be finding a way to close it out, which is really, if you're happy to go ahead with that, let me get over the invoice and pay the first 30% and we're away. So I think when it comes to the type of questions to ask people, so your information questions would be around, have they got a website now? Have they had one in the past? What are some of the websites they've seen that they've liked? Who are their top competitors? Those sorts of things. Why are you looking for a website? I haven't got, it might be I haven't got one and some of my customers have asked for it and it's a bit embarrassing that I don't have one. Dig in on that, So just talk to me about that. So what are the effects it's having on your business of not having a website? You could ask that boldly. Do you actually really need one, do you think? What are the impacts that's happening for you of you not having a website, right? And then they'll start talking and coming forward to you. And then you can make them feel comfortable that they're on the right track by saying, yeah, it really is a thing nowadays. If you don't have a website, it's not... it doesn't really look like you're a real business. So the vision question that you could ask with that would be, Mary, when people are on your website and having a look around, what do you want them to think? Right? I don't know. Well, think about it, Mary. Just say someone who's interested in your type of product or service, they'd been on your website and they were telling their partner about the website. What do you want them to say, right? So they've got to have a picture or a vision, and they'll say things like, oh, it looked really professional, or it gave me the information I wanted, or those sorts of things, right? And that's how then you can come back and talk about, well, with the layout and the imagery and the functionality of the site, we're going to make sure that it gives the people the information they want, makes you look highly professional, and so on and so forth. So think about those questions as pain and vision. So what are the pain points So the problem, what are the pain points associated with that problem? And what's their vision of what life will be like when they have a solution? So that's important, because some people, you don't want to ask it in a way that they think, well, I don't know how to fix it. I'm not the expert. You want to say, well, assuming we can fix this for you, what do you want life to be like when it's fixed? What do you want people to say? Blah, blah, blah. And so they're just talking about the outcome. They're not talking about the process. And then when you can say, as an expert in the process, I can get you from here to here, right? From the pain point to the happy, smiley place. Does that sort of make sense on the process there, Mike?
Yeah, thanks very much. Cheers.
You're welcome. Susie.
Hi. Just wanted to ask a question. I've been in sales my whole working life, and I had a baptism of fire into the car game very early on. I started when I was about 18 or 19.
Yeah.
And that was that was an experience and a half. But we were taught when sales calls would come in, we used to use an old system. I've got the word RTEC in my head, but I can't remember if that's what it was called. But they used to actually record our phone calls. And then we'd
Yep.
have someone come in once a week and go over the phone calls, and you had certain things you had to ask and things like that. And we would learn from that. And then, you know, I moved on from that into a different industry, and I was taught the Friedman system of selling. So the good old, you know, the card game was very much the old road to the sale, you know, which is the basics of it. And then I was taught the Friedman system, which was a lot more into, you know, the ins and outs of, you know, like you said, you know, your introduction, your qualifying, you're finding what the person needs, so on and so forth. I don't know what experience you've had with those sorts of things, James, but do you think that there's a big difference between, and you know, what was done in systems like that, say in the late 90s, early 2000s, which is when I learned the Friedman system, back as far as, you know, the mid 80s to the good old road to the sale, and, you know, if I can, will you, and then coming into the way that you structure your sales system now. Is there a big difference, or are the main steps still fairly similar, do you think?
Yeah, I think that we've got a situation where the customers are a lot more educated now than what they've ever been. They're actually pushing the salesperson out of the front end of the sales process, and they're coming in reasonably well educated, which is the you know, the interesting thing. So I would be suggesting that anything that looks like it's too sort of directing or too pushing is going to be rejected by the client. However, having said that, if you do the needs identification piece really well and get them to open up, then you can really take that lead and say, well, let me show you what you need to do to achieve X, Y, and Z. And the X, Y, and Z is their X, Y, and Z. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
The assumption that you're like everybody else that buys a car is we can't make that anymore. And you hear people saying, oh, but my situation is a bit different. When I deal with business owners, they'll always say, but my business is a bit different. Well, in many ways it is, but in some ways it's not. You still need to make a profit, you know? So, but I think the mechanisms of sort of salesperson as a hero are gone. The client's the hero, but what we've got to understand. Hey,
were they ever really heroes?
Yeah. I really think that process of you know, leading the conversation so we understand the needs, and that's challenging because people are still affected by that sort of pushy salesperson who's only really out for themselves, and they want to protect from that, and that's why getting them to open up is a little bit more difficult. But in that ideas process that we see, we're starting with very easy questions to answer, which is the information, and that's how you showcase how you do work with them when they're questioning. You don't just ask a question to try and butt in, and then that will support you as you get in under the surface. So you're building trust as you go.
Yeah, that was very much how the Friedman system went into it. As I said, that was sort of early 2000s. But I still found that the basics of that process with the person, if you did it well, were very similar in the fact that you were building trust, you were getting them comfortable with you, you know, being yourself, like, you know, because people can see straight through if you're trying to be a different kind of personality, and, you know, doing that at that person's level, wherever they're at, being able to recognize that. And then, like you said, you know, qualifying them, finding out what it is that they actually need, and, you know, what you need to do to help them achieve that. And
100%.
you know, so it was just interesting that, as I said, you know, that's you know, from years ago.
It works really well for personal services too. So for people, particularly with people who are looking for things in terms of improvements in, you know, personal performance or health or what have you, because there's often a lot of real, you know, interesting sort of pain points, and I just don't mean physically hurting, but there's also then the picture of the vision of what I would like my life and health and vitality and so forth to be like when I have a fix to this. So in that trusted environment, you can get, you know, you can really win them over. in that. And of course, all of this has got to be done from a basis of where we are looking to meet their needs. And that's the concept of a service provider in business. You meet your own needs by fulfilling the needs of others, because that's your economic income. So yeah.
Sorry, can I ask one more thing?
Why not?
Because I love selling, I love sales, so I could talk about this for hours. I won't, but I could. But for those people who are going, okay, well, you know what, this isn't my comfort zone. Sales isn't really something that I feel comfortable with. If they're wanting to, become a lot better at that process, other than working with someone like yourself, is there something that they can do that allows them to go back over, like say they've been sat with a client, for an hour, they've had their meeting with that client, and they leave that meeting and they go, God, what did I say? What did I do? Is there something that they can utilize in their meetings that when they get back to the office, they can sit down and go over that to better themselves in that process, if that makes sense?
Yeah. Personal reflection is really, really important. So, you look at the old continuous improvement loop of plan, do, review. So the review step is often a bit that people miss out on. They can do plans and they do, but often don't sit down and reflect. So on the basis of a sales meeting, you'll know in your gut if you felt it went really well or didn't go really well. And you should review both. Did anyone see the Australian high jumper with her book at the Olympics? Every time she'd make a jump, she'd immediately go to a notepad and she'd write stuff down. Did anyone see that?
Oh, wow. That's good.
She was always, every single jump, and it was right through from the beginning of how she felt mentally, what she was like on the tarmac, what happened in the air, all that sort of stuff. Her coach was getting her to do that. And I was watching it because I'm mental rehearsal and self-talk is an incredibly important part of our success. And quite often we're using mental rehearsal and self-talk to take us away from our goal because of what we're allowing to go on, instead of making sure we are thinking and seeing what we want to have happen. So yeah, I'd be sitting down after every meeting. If in your gut it was, hey, that was a really good meeting, I'd be thinking, well, what about it went well? And you want to be asking yourself, so based on that ideas process, what's the dissatisfaction that they spoke about? And can you get clear points on that? Did you dig them up? What are the pain points associated with that dissatisfaction? What's their clear and evident goal and dream or desire for what the future wants to look like? And just by focusing in on those and giving yourself a little bit of a kick in the backside if you didn't identify it, and giving yourself a pat on the back for when you did identify it, what that's going to do is slowly but surely change your focus when you're in sales meetings.
Yeah,
and if you get to the point where you're dealing with someone that's a bit tough and won't give that information up, then they don't qualify. But what I say to people, give it the benefit of the doubt. Wait until you get good at identifying this stuff before you sort of drop the axe, because the reality is most people, prospects, may not give that up because you're not very good at getting it out of them. Yeah. And once you get good at getting out of them, if they then are continuing to resist, then you can just politely say, hey, look, it doesn't seem, well, that's what I do. If they're clearly resisting, the needs identification process, I'll just say to them, look, it seems to me that you may not actually have a really important need. We've been talking around this for a while. Everything seems fine. There doesn't seem to be anything coming up for you around, significant problems or needs for the future. So is it really right for you to be looking at this type of product or service? I just take it away from them. And some people go, yeah, now, you're right. I just thought I'd find out a bit and blah, blah, blah. And I end it then politely, but I'm not going to go and present my product or service to someone who clearly doesn't have a need. Sometimes that person has just been a bit of a jerk. And when you say that and you let them know that, hey, we're about to end here, without being threatening, I'm very comfortable with it. They can often, no, I have got a need. Yeah, it's just a bit hard to talk about or whatever. Okay, well, let me help you. Let's get to the bottom of it. And then they can turn right around. Some people have a treat them mean and keep them keen mentality when they're dealing with suppliers. That's their sort of approach. They were taught that way or whatever. And we can't let ourselves be someone's sort of whipping bag. So
No,
But
I
that's
think-
what I would be doing, Susie, in terms of a review after every sales meeting or day of sales. It's still fresh enough in your memory. Can you write down the dissatisfaction points they had, the pain points associated with that dissatisfaction, and the goals and desires they've got for the future? And if you can do that after a sales meeting, you ran a very good sales meeting, better than what your competitors will run in 90% of cases.
because I think it's so important, because it's different when you're in a say a retail environment where you've got a boss who may be listening in on your conversation, who can then guide you
Yes.
after that sales transaction, or if you are on the phone and and it is being recorded and things like that. But I think when you work for yourself and you have a meeting where there's just you and the client, then to have a few tools that you can utilize that will help you remember what was said, help you remember where you may have been a bit misdirected, or where the client may have, gotten ahead of you a little bit, however that works. I think to have those tools in place, or definitely go back and reflect on them afterwards, I think can take your game to such a different level when you're doing it on your own, as I said, because you don't have someone there to guide you. It's not like we're elite athletes, like, that have the camera on us, because I think it would just be creepy at ourselves.
Yeah.
Sales call, do you mind if I videotape us while we're talking? Like,
You can do for yourself
But-
just a little, just on a little A4 piece of paper. You can remind yourself of a couple of those. You can put some key headings down the sheet. What are they dissatisfied with? What are the pain points associated with that? What would they like in the future? And other sort of interesting bibs and bobs that come up. You can carve off a box that's interesting, not good, bad, or indifferent, just interesting. And then there might be a set of things that you want to know about them as well. So you can actually create for yourself a little template that you keep coming back to, and that's what you take notes on. I've found if I take notes on the phone call, it keeps me, and particularly to something that's got just a handful of key headings. You don't want like a full-on checklist. It keeps me focused and helps me continue to take the lead in the conversation without being bossy. Right? You don't want to be bossy on the phone call because no one will like you. But that's that. Okay. Well, any more questions before we finish up? Because we've popped over the hour by about 10 or 12 minutes. Hands in the air if you've got any final questions. Okay, terrific. Well, what I think I'll do, Susie, is I will stop the recording and